I don't want any of this. And I don't know what we're arguing about at this point.
Me either.
What? So you support the draft?
I support not comparing the draft to chattel slavery.
Okay, so you support what, the invasion of the South and the killing of hundreds of thousands of people and the burning of all their cities?
To free my ancestors? Hell yeah, Robbie.
Okay, we found a war you can get excited about. The
what the
destruction
is the matter with it? Can we pause this guy? What the dude, what is the matter with you? I can't believe this is real, guys. I can't believe this is real. This is a professional newsroom, guys. This is The Hill. But anyway, I'm excited to get into this Bree and Robby debate. As people were pointing out in the beginning of the live stream, it's been a while since we've done a good react along to the Hills rising over there. We've been doing too much of the actual news guard over here. There's been a lot to talk about, but we still like to, code it all, give you the spoonful of sugar to help the medicine go down. I haven't seen this clip. Gavin sent it to me. We were planning on talking about Nikki Haley anyway. So I was like, might as well react in real time with you guys. Let's see how spicy it gets. Let's see who's right and who's wrong. I think I have a hunch.
Yeah, dude. Another surprisingly awkward debate over here that I thought we would take a look at. The first 10 minutes or so of the conversation is a little bit less exciting. Then it takes a weird turn at about the 10-minute mark. And for the remaining second half of this debate, Bree seems genuinely stunned with the line of logic and questioning that Robby's about to go down. And he kind of tries to paint her as a hypocrite too, linking her commentary on the war on Gaza to how the North treated the South during the Civil War. So I don't want to spoil any of this, but it's about to get pretty unhinged.
Right. It's a true statement. Either you can confront the true statement and deal with it, or you can't. If people are saying true things that make you look bad, that's on you, bub. You can't externalize blame on that one. And this, Haley framed, she said, well, this is a hard question, sarcastically, oh, hit me with an easy question, why don't you? It actually was an easy question. It's an easy question.
Literally.
World and in a political layup where you can say honest historical facts about the things that happened in American history. Honest historical facts about the war that took more American lives than any war in American history. But we don't live in that country. And at the same time that she's prevaricating on that stage, we have people like Christopher Rufo and Ron DeSantis who are actively trying to pull African American history, which is American history, from schools, so that no one will read what I just read into the record here about what Mississippi's secession document actually says.
Nobody is trying to stop you from reading about Mississippi's succession document.
Robbie.
What are you? No, the reality about the Civil War, it has been taught, is being taught, and will continue to be taught. It's not Confederates planning our school books. I'm surprised you have this. It sounds, the North did you could say that was fine. They needed to do that, and this was necessary to end the institution of slavery, which is horrible. The hundreds of thousands of deaths, the invasion and conquest of the South, the burning of city after city, a scorched earth policy of totally destroying.
It's pretty funny how he says the invasion of the South too, as if it wasn't the South that started the fucking war. The South is the one that tried to secede after Lincoln became president and opposed slavery's expansion. That's not up for debate. The North didn't just march into the South one day being we don't like how you guys are running things down here. We're just going to march in there, start burning shit, start killing people because, we don't approve. No, it was the South that started the fucking war, dude.
Literally, they started with a literal secession from the United States. Obviously, at that point, there's going to be a conflict.
You could say that was fine. They needed to do that, and this was necessary to end the institution of slavery, which is horrible. The hundreds of thousands of deaths, the invasion and conquest of the South, the burning of city after city, a scorched earth policy of totally destroying the Confederate armed forces, killing and capturing their leaders. That's fine. That's what we did. We can't examine. I think it's fine to wonder if that was the greatest course of action or the ideal way to bring about the end of slavery, particularly because the North invented the draft and the purpose of doing it, which is, in my view, also a form of slavery, that then persisted for another 100 years. Forcing people to go die in warfare is the most objectionable thing I could possibly think of.
Oh, more objectionable than human chattel slavery, bro?
of.
Weird. I think 400
you are
years of chattel slavery having ritualized.
If the government can make you die, if they can make you die,
slave owners couldn't kill their slaves didn't kill their slaves.
I'm saying this is a form of slavery. I'm not saying slavery is not slavery.
You just said that the draft is the worst thing that you could think of. And we're having a conversation about chattel slavery.
You do not, if the government can make you go die on a foreign battlefield, you don't own yourself in any.
God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Like I am massively anti-war. Okay. And I do not support the United States government sending people overseas to die and commit murder. Like, dude, come on. That dehumanize, like, it's you can't even like fucking explain this to somebody who doesn't want to understand it. They've like just closed themselves off to that like reality. Like they physically, fundamentally do not want to understand how horrifying, how cruel, how barbaric it was. Right? You can't even fucking. You know, there's no way to even describe it that wouldn't even come up short, right? It's humiliating for Robby to say this, right? That's the only way I could put this into context. Like, this is absolutely embarrassing, and the fact that he's doubled and now tripled down into what he's saying, the fundamental idea of a draft is that those guys spent 365 days where they were drafted, right? And obviously that was wrong, but they would count their fucking days. That's how Vietnam worked. And obviously there were fucking draft riots in the Civil War and people were poor and a bunch of fucking bad things happened and our governments were corrupt on both sides. Like nobody's out here like standing everything that the fucking union did. But there was a clear good guy and a clear bad guy. It's kind of like when people are like, well, you know, like fucking the United States did the bombing of Tokyo and we bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And I'm like, those things were horrible and we should not have done that. But like on World War II, if you're taking it as an example, there were way worse guys on the other side. I'm just like putting my hands in the air and saying there were way worse guys on the other side, right? So like using that as your analogy is terrible. It's like, yeah, being in a draft in Vietnam, bad. But human chattel slavery, it's like, it's not even up for discussion. It's not even worth giving direct comparisons to. It's that blatant. It's that clear.
Yeah, completely ridiculous. Also, Robby tries to assert that like the North came up with the draft or enforced the draft. Is that not what he was saying? That like basically it was the North's fault that we have the draft now?
I think
I just looked at
for it.
Oh, you're good. What were you saying?
Oh, I said, yeah, that's what he was saying.
Right. I just looked it up and both sides in the Civil War used the draft. It says here on Wikipedia, after initial enthusiasm faded, reliance on the cohort of young men who came of age every year and wanted to join was not enough. No, both sides used a draft law, conscription, as a device to encourage or force volunteering. Relatively few were drafted and served. The Confederacy passed a draft law in April 1862 for young men aged 18 to 35. Overseers of slaves, government officials, and clergymen were exempt, by the way. Of course, the actual slave owners didn't have to fight in the war for their right to own slaves. So, I mean, obviously, I'm not in favor of the draft, but don't act like, oh, yeah, thanks to the fucking Union and the North's quote unquote invasion and conquest of the South. Those are literally the words he used. Thanks to that, now we're stuck with the draft all these years later. I mean, technically it ended at Vietnam, but it could still come back. And he's saying that's also a form of slavery, which again, I'm not in favor of the draft, but I think it's pretty obvious that it's not as bad as fucking chattel slavery.
Capitalism is slavery, man. What are you talking about, bro? We're all of us are damn slaves, man.
Yeah, and shout out to you, Jonathan Boyle. Thanks for the first super chat of the live stream, $5. You'd think a libertarian would have no problem condemning slavery. Shake my head. Yeah, and again, even if you think that it's tragic what happened in the Civil War with all of the quote unquote innocent people in the South that got slaughtered, and all the innocent people in the North that got slaughtered. Of course, when I say innocent, I just mean like normal people that were drafted into the war.
In the South that wanted their fucking slaves, bro. I'm not crying exactly. You know what I mean? I was like, it
right,
needed to be dealt with.
Yeah, exactly. And again, even if you want to shed a tear for those lives lost, blame the freaking Confederacy. They're the ones that started the war. They're the ones that tried to secede from the Union. They're the ones that attacked the United States of America started trying to seize freaking territory, started trying to take forts and federal assets. Like, it's not exactly like the North had much of an option as far as how to respond to such a threat. Anyway,
conceivable way. So that's why I don't romanticize the North's actions.
You have a right to
during
get
this whole
married if
thing.
you're in a war. If you're drafted, you have a right to keep your own children, not have them literally sold away from you as property. You have a right to wages for your labor. You had a right to a GI Bill.
One kind of slavery is the right way to get.
Robby, you can make your point without making a comparison between the draft and chattel slavery, which was a multi-generational pogrom against millions of Africans who were brought across the Atlantic and kept for hundreds of years without a single right in the land.
Very bad. Shouldn't have done any of it. Should not have enslaved people in the course of ending it. And in fact, it is obviously prohibited by the same.
It's one of those things where there's like a coldness to what he's talking about that I don't think anybody appreciates. Like, he has absolutely no sympathy in his voice. He has way more sympathy in his voice for some random Southerners in the Confederate fucking war who had their house burned down. I'm sorry, did you not understand that these people were engaging in one of the most brutal acts of fucking ritual terrorism that this land has ever fucking seen? Think about that, Robby. And you're just like, wow, fuck, I don't know. The North came in and then they said that we're going to fight you and we're going to stop you. No, you could say that we shouldn't have done that, but look at this. Like, how can you say that's bad? And then you're over here, and then there's Palestine, and you said that's bad, and you said, well, what's good then? No, it's like, it is the most gish gallopy, fucking repulsive, like, inconsistent, unthorough line of thinking I've ever seen in my entire life. It's crazy. And again, it just doesn't sound like he doesn't have any at all kind of like emotion when he talks about it. Like, how can you think about that? How can you understand the horrors that people were put through? Fucking tortured, beaten, raped, fucking having their loved ones and their family taken away from them, having their loved ones beaten, tortured, and fucking crazy, guys. If you don't even really need to read about it to understand it, but if you do, you can realize, maybe Robby does need to go read about it and realize how explicitly brutal, how fucking inhuman the treatment of slaves were. It's so ridiculous to just callously oh yeah, well, you could be upset about that and that was wrong, but he almost has like a smug little shit-eating grin on his face. It's so strange.
Amendment to our Constitution that ends slavery should have applied to that draft as well. But
all right,
I don't like people dying.
Wait, pause it.
I don't like people being enslaved.
Ask Robby if that means he wants to free everybody from jail because he thinks that the practice of slavery should have ended across the board. Robby, go ahead and see how you feel that. Listen, are we going to let everybody out of jail? Because that's also a form of slavery, right? Robby's taking a very liberal understanding of the term slavery. Great. I would also like to abolish. Like, do you see what I mean? This dude, he's so like selective with how he wants to interpret his own libertarianism. It's crazy.
I don't want any of this, and I don't know what we're arguing about at this point.
Me either.
What? So you support the draft?
I support not comparing the draft to chattel slavery.
Okay, so you support the invasion of the South and the killing of hundreds of thousands of people and the burning of all their cities?
To free my ancestors? Hell yeah, Robby.
Okay, we found a war you can get excited about.
What the
total
fuck
destruction,
is the matter with it? Can we pause this guy? What the fuck? Dude, what is the matter with you? I can't believe this is real, guys. I can't believe this is real. This is a professional newsroom, guys. This is The Hill. This is a man that gets paid ostensibly a large salary to go there every day and give his views to the public as the fucking editor of the Federalist magazine or the Ferrer magazine. I can't fucking remember. Jesus Christ, the fact that he just gets to do this for fucking I get it. Like, I don't support the wow. This is your guy. Whoo.
Yeah, and first of all, it's like, why are they even talking about the draft? She's like, yeah, I think that's probably a good place to wrap up the conversation. He's like, so you support the draft? It's like, dude, that's not even the topic in question today. No one is talking about the fucking draft except for you. You randomly brought it up as a reason why actually the Civil War was bad because it resulted in more slavery. What a big brain take, bro. And then when Brie doesn't she doesn't want to follow you down that rabbit hole. So you just go to, so what, you do support the North's invasion of the South? You support that? And she's like, I'm pretty sure almost everyone in America does. Like, that's one of the few, like, clearly, obviously moral actions the United States military has probably ever taken was fighting the fucking South in the Civil War. Are you kidding me? And again, Robby's about to try to bring Palestine up and link these conflicts somehow. But of course, as Audrey French points out, it's not like it was a separate country. The U.S. South was part of the same country. America was trying to squash a violent rebellion within its own borders. We're not talking about another country which America is subjugating at its border and oppressing for years, imposing apartheid upon. No, if anything, the South was incredibly pampered by the North. Bree points out at one point in this debate that it was actually the slave owners that got reparations after the war was over. Not the fucking slaves, but the slave owners, because their businesses were upended by the war. So yeah, it's completely ridiculous what Robby's about to do, but just to prepare you guys, that's where this is about to go.
Me either.
What? So you support the draft?
I support not comparing the draft to chattel slavery.
Okay, so you support what, the invasion of the South and the killing of hundreds of thousands of people and the burning of all their cities?
To free my ancestors? Hell yeah, Robby.
Okay, we found a war you can get excited about. Total destruction until they surrender. Very interesting.
So when we're talking about Gaza, you say, well, if Hamas will just surrender, then we don't have to have a war anymore.
Exactly.
Well, the South just released the slaves. They wouldn't have to have a civil war.
Exactly. And they destroyed every city, every armed force until they achieved that outcome. That's what I'm saying. No, you have a problem with this as applied to any other conflict, but not this one.
The difference is, Robby, that you ignore the fact that 2.3 million Palestinians have been kept in an open-air prison for decades, after 700,000 of them that lived and were indigenous to the land now called Israel were driven out in an ethnic cleansing event in 1948 at the founding of Israel. Subsequently, they were living under those chattel conditions with a blockade where Israel won't even let them have chocolate. They have to have special passes and checkpoints like apartheid South Africa to get from one point to another. They were being kept on a starvation diet. They were not given access to medicine, food, and they were ritualistically, routinely, the lawn was mowed, where hundreds of Palestinians were kept on.
They put terrorists in charge of their government. Those terrorists attacked the state of Israel. Israel is now
all right. I'm
continuing this action until it defeats them, just as the North did to the South in the Civil War. If you'd been around then, I don't know. To be consistent, I think you'd have to be saying, no, they should hold back. They should permanently.
How are you going to compare? Oh my God! How are you going to compare what Israel is doing in Gaza to what the North did when they fought the South and freed the fucking slaves? This is the most insane take I've ever heard in my entire life. I thought that he couldn't go down a deeper rabbit hole. Sorry, guys, I turned off my camera for a second. I was still listening. I thought that he couldn't make this any worse on himself. He's like, no, like, it's so crazy. He has such like a warped view here. He's like determined to make the bad guys the good guys in this situation. Somebody's a little in their feelings about the fall of the Confederacy. 100%, dude. This is fucking barbaric. This is insanity. This is insanity, and it makes me wonder how I like actually how prolific these views are. You know what I mean? Like, do a lot of people feel this way? Fucking scary, horrifying.
Yeah, and Robby, it's not like Robby's some, dumb fuck Duck Dynasty motherfucker living in Mississippi. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is an educated person, has a job on mainstream media. We're not like, hey, we found some pool hall in Louisiana where a couple of the local residents still think that the Confederacy was based. No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about like a mainstream, quote unquote, libertarian who's, for some reason, for a libertarian, just so triggered by Bree's anti-war stance when it comes to Palestine that now he's like, oh, so you're against this war? I bet that means you're against the Civil War too. Gotcha. It's like, that's not how it fucking works, you moron. Not every war is the same. You can't just reduce all of the context into like, well, if the North had the right to do this to the South, then any other government ever has the right to do the same thing to any country of their choosing based on anything.
Permanent ceasefire. That would be ridiculous because they were going to continue. Would you have said that in the Civil War circumstance?
Wait, first of all, you're dramatically, I wasn't going to touch this because this is going long and not the point, but you're dramatically mischaracterizing.
You said they won't let them read the Missouri secession document in schools anymore.
It was Mississippi.
Whatever it was.
What I was going to say was that it was beside the point, but you're dramatically mischaracterizing how the Civil War was handled. While slaves got nothing, slave owners were literally paid reparations and given the cost of their losses and made whole during the war. And after a very brief period where it looked like there would be some semblance of enforced equality in the South, it went out the door after Lincoln's death. And we had a very brief period where we actually had Black senators elected and the like in the South. And then we had a pogrom of post-war life and indentured servitude and Jim Crow laws that were almost as bad as the slavery itself, which lasted up until the civil rights era when my parents were born. So, excuse me, this is not a historical abstraction, although for people who don't read, who live in Florida, very soon it might just be an abstraction as they're disallowed from actually taking African-American classes at these state schools.
Go ahead.
But this is really real. And I do think it's very telling that the same people who I think would likely probably defend the South in the Civil War, a lot of the people who aren't understanding why the cause of freedom is so important for Palestinians. It's so important for Black people because fundamentally there are some inalienable rights which are in our Constitution, but which were not evenly applied to all human beings in the United States of America because Black people under the law were not considered to be full human beings, according to our Constitution.
And I'm saying it's totally inconsistent, your view on whether is the correct course of action for a government to invade another area seeking the total elimination and destruction of an enemy government and then imposing new conditions on it.
The North was Gaza. Israel is not seeking the total elimination of a government.
Hamas is the government of the area.
Israel is in. I don't know how many experts have to go on TV and say this. Israel is doing a genocidal campaign.
No, they are not.
Of Gaza.
They are not. That is not true.
It is 100% true.
Well, it's not.
They have killed over 200,000 people, half of which are children. They have killed 11,000 children.
20,000.
Sorry, 20,000 children. 11,000 of them are children. They have bombed almost every residential building in Gaza, churches, schools, universities, so that nobody can go back. They have explicitly stated a plan of ethnically cleansing them to either Arab countries in the region or to the Sinai Peninsula specifically. They are planting literal flags at the same time that their kill ratio of actual members of Hamas to civilians is lower than what the terrorists did on October 7th. This is not a pogrom. This is not an effort to get rid of Hamas. And if you are believing that and repeating that at this point, I don't know what to tell you. If they are after Hamas, they're the most ineffectual, inept, ridiculous army in the world, and they shouldn't get a cent more of American dollar, and nobody should take them seriously. By contrast, we had a country called the United States of America, half of which decided that they were willing to leave the Union in order to maintain the institution of slavery. And we fought a war to end it. They did not just randomly do sniper attacks and kill Confederate soldiers.
Briahna, that is ridiculous. They burned cities down. They killed half the entire population of military age men. There were all sorts of atrocities committed. It's fine. It's warfare. It happens. I'm not saying I'm against it or it's unjustified, but it is warfare. And that's how warfare goes.
Robbie, they killed military men? Wow, I wish they were killing military men in Gaza, but
this is warfare. It is bloody. It is destructive. They blow up things. You burn them down.
Specifically said, how many Israeli officials have to get on TV and say, they're all Hamas? Everyone's a likely target.
If you had smartphones back then, it would look the same way.
It wouldn't, because that's not true. It's just, Robbie, I look, I don't have to finish this conversation with you because you're representing a viewpoint that is like nobody's. And so I'm happy it's your read. Go ahead and end the segment. I don't need to argue with you.
I'm representing viewpoints of nobody's.
Yes, I don't need to sit and argue with you that actually the Civil War was much more cruel and that the North was worse than the South and the literal genocide that we're seeing unfold in front of our eyes.
That's not an putting word in my mouth. I'm not saying that.
You can feel free to clarify and wrap at your leisure.
Okay. I think that does it for us for today. Tomorrow on Rising, Jessica Burbank and Amber Duke will be back to take the baton for Rising Fridays.
Oof. Robby fucking Soave, everybody. This is the brightest mind in conservative media. Yep. Wow. Bringing, always in decline, never hitting bottom. That's Robby's politics.